I'm going to come across racist mentality in my lifetime. And if I was going to tuck and run the other way each time and let them discourage me from what I wanted to do in life, then I was falling into the trap that they were setting for me.
Welcome everyone to Hockey Culture. This is the place where we try to change the culture of hockey, one interview at a time. We've got two previous winners of the Willie Community Hero Award. We got the 2019 winner, Rico Phillips, and we got the 2020 winner, Dampy Brar. Fellas, welcome.
Oh,
Thank you for having
us here.
Rico, I want to start with you because you're up in Flint, Michigan. I'm very, very familiar with Flint, Michigan. I went to Michigan State, and I know the Flintstones that won national championships there. But you started out as a trainer at first in the game of hockey. And what led you to enlisting first as a trainer in hockey and then falling in love with the sport itself?
Well, I'll tell you what, Anson, I wanted to become an athletic trainer because as a freshman in high school, I was trying to figure out what it would take to become a professional firefighter. And as many people probably know, athletic trainers deal with athletic injuries. And so it was my way of getting right involved with treating patients, whether it be injured or ill or whatever. And so I worked with the football team, and I was going to work with the basketball team, but the head athletic trainer said, no, you're going to have to sit in the bleacher. And I said, what? I can't sit in the bleacher. I'm a trainer. And I sit next to a hockey player, and he said, we need a trainer. And I got to be honest with you, my first thought was, hockey players get their teeth knocked out. I know I'll have some work to do. Perfect place for me. But so I was assigned to the hockey team, and I saw my first game at ice level, and the rest, as they say, is history. Within 2 years of that, I became an on-ice official, which I have to be honest with you, I hadn't even learned how to stop properly yet. So the kids I was refereeing, they're 8 years old and under, they stopped better than I did, and that was kind of an anomaly within itself. And also I stuck out a little bit because I was only person of color in the rinks, and certainly a person of color as an authoritative figure. But it was testing times back then, and I also got to say this, as a young black hockey fan, which is what I became immediately. The one thing that you do as a black hockey fan is you look for black hockey players. You just attach to them. So my very first black hockey college star was Anson Carter, because I'm from Michigan. And so what an honor it is to be interviewed and talk to you. I met you in person at the award show, but thanks for what you've done to me for me personally, as far as being an inspiration.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to have inspired you, because what you're doing tremendous work there in Flint, Michigan. You talked about being a trainer first and then moving on to becoming a referee. That couldn't have been easy. You've had an incident like pretty early on the job there where you had a racial slur, hurled towards you. And how did you deal with that? Because a lot of people, it could go either way. You could either fight back, or you could swallow your pride and deal with it in a mature way. So you obviously dealt with it in a mature way. What advice were you given, and how do you deal with that situation?
Well, one thing to keep in effect, I was 17 years old at the time, 2 months into my refereeing tenure, and I blew a call, as many young officials do. And I was called over by the head coach, and actually it was the assistant coach who just started berating me, threw the N-bomb at me, and then told me he was going to kick my tail in the parking lot. And I was 17 years old. I'm looking at into a grown man's eyes. And to be honest with you, I had a bit of fear, because I felt like, wow, this man is that angry. Is he actually going to follow through with this? But I went in the locker room, and I was convinced I was taking off my gear for the very last time. I didn't want anything more to do with hockey, because if somebody's willing to say that to an official, certainly as a player, I can expect it to happen. But I was working with a senior partner, and he explained to me that that day was the day I was going to grow up some. And I kind of looked at him sideways, and what he explained to me is that I'm going to come across racist mentality in my lifetime. And if I was going to tuck and run the other way each time and let them discourage me from what I wanted to do in life, then I was falling into the trap that they were setting for me. He also said that he commended me for not acting out, because that's what he would have expected, that average person is going to be totally upset. He said, but by the same token, Rico, what I want you to recognize is that you had the authority to kick the guy out of the game. He ended up giving the suspension, but I had the authority to do that, to be more than I was that day. And so I grew up, and I didn't carry it as a heavyweight. I just looked at it as an experience to prepare myself for future experiences. And trust me, it wasn't the last one, unfortunately. But what it did for me is it matured me in a way to where I was better able to prepare for it in the future.
Yeah, that's similar advice that my parents gave myself, my brother, and my sister growing up. They said racism exists in this world. So how are you going to deal with it? You got to be mature about it. You can look the other way, be the bigger person. And it always irritated me when an adult said something to me like that. When players said it, my parents always said, kids are ignorant. They don't know any better. But when adults say something like that, they should know better. So I definitely commend you, and I tip my hockey helmet to you for the way you handled that situation, because it could have went badly. It could have went poorly. You never know. You could have acted out. You could have got arrested, and your whole future, could have went down the drain. So I definitely commend the way you handled that. Speaking of family, Dampy, you're the first child of both sides of your family that was born outside of India. And a lot of players that I know growing up in Toronto that weren't white, that played the game of hockey, used the game of hockey to connect with the community. Did you have a similar experience growing up in BC?
Yeah, we grew up in a small town, and it was a mining town. So all the, let's say, the new immigrants that immigrated in the early 70s found a place in Spar, BC, and they were hiring, labor workers and so forth. So for me, I was very fortunate that there was older East Indian hockey players that played hockey, and that allowed my parents to ease my my journey into hockey, because those boys were about 5 to 6 years older than me. And obviously, when you first come to Canada, you're going to rely on people that look like you, or that speak the same language, that are going through the same thing that you're going through. So for me, I was very fortunate, like I said, and it wasn't very hard for my parents to agree to put me in hockey. There was no push and pull or any negotiations. And there was a lot of street hockey being played in front of our house, where there's East Indian boys that were playing hockey, road hockey. And I would just watch, because I was only 4 years old, and I was waiting to get out there. And I knew who all of them were, and they knew I was a little bit younger. And so, yeah, just if there's the same culture that's out there doing something, it gives the confidence for other families to allow that to happen. So.
What advice did your parents give you to help you navigate life as a hockey player? Because I'm sure there wasn't that many South Asian players playing when you came around. Aren't that many right now. So what advice did your parents give you? Because I'm sure you probably encountered some situations where you thought to yourself, is this game for me? Is this game welcoming for me? Could I go and play something else? But you obviously persevered just the same way Rico did.
Right. I think, the first couple of years is just feeling out the hockey game, all right, the game of hockey and the travels. Right? And we lived in a small town, so the travel wasn't that difficult. But like my parents just said, just have fun with it and see. And I think it was my third year of hockey that really engaged my parents, because I got moved up to play with older kids. I was scoring a lot of goals. I was scored 13 goals in one game, 8 in the other. And it was like, the people that are running Minor Hockey Association basically said, you're playing with the older kids. You're too good for the younger. And that really engaged my parents. I think, with all this award and looking back and all these memories, my parents were like, that's when we felt like, this is your game. This is the sport that we are going to really help you with. And as I was getting older, I would get, and just like how Rico was going through stuff, people would say negative stuff, because, I was kind of the better player in the team, and people would say negative things. And when I would approach my parents, I didn't tell them everything. I didn't say, this person said this, right? But I just kind of had that intuition that let's not whine too much. I am different. I do look different. And my parents just took it this way, is that, they're only saying that because you're a good player. So you got to continue to show what you're doing. Don't let them say stuff. And they try to take race out of it, because they endured racism. My dad endured racism at work, but he didn't disclose that till later on in life, because he didn't want us to use that as an excuse in our daily lives. So I really liked how my parents really did everything. They just said, hey, just work hard. They're only doing that because you're a good player. And that really inspired me, because I'm like, okay. And some of the words that they were saying, obviously I kind of got a hint of it. It wasn't, hey, it wasn't a generic comment. It was a racial comment. And as I moved forward, when I started playing Pee Wee and Bantam and stuff, you line up at the face-up, people say something, and just kind of shrug your shoulders, that don't let it affect you, because if it starts to letting affect you, then they've done their job. And just like how I think all three of us have gone through our journeys of hockey or in sports, if it lets you affect you, it gets too deep, it affects your game. If it affects your game, you're not going anywhere, right?
Rico, I want to ask you about the program that you started, the Flint Intercity Youth Hockey Program. You had like 37 years on the force there at the Flint City Fire Department. Mm-hmm. And service has always been in your blood. It's always been a part of who you are. And you were a fireman for years. Then you had started this program, this intercity hockey program. Why did you start the program? I mean, you're a referee, and it was not a referee's program, but it was a program to help kids within the community. What was the motivation behind starting that program for you?
Well, I did start playing as a young adult too, so I really picked up the game and started to love it for why everybody else loves it, the skill, the speed, passion. But it was as a referee is where I made some clear observations after, I'd say about 10 years. I was on the ice, and what I seen in front of me was basically the same kid. In other words, they're from suburban, affluent communities. They're all one race, basically, and they looked and sounded the same. And I thought to myself, why aren't there more people that are participating? And I didn't just mean black people. Of course I meant black people because I was all alone. I'd never seen another person of color in the rink for probably my first 12 years of being a part of hockey. With that said, I decided that I wanted to create a program that will allow kids that live in the city of Flint, just like I did, to give them a golden opportunity to learn the sport free of charge. And the mindset would be that once they get a chance to play, they're going to love it just like I did. That was like the motivating inspiration that I wanted to have to develop our program. And so once we did, we invite kids between the ages of 8 and 11 who reside specifically in the city of Flint to come out, and we outfit them head to toe, ice time, even transportation to and from the rink is absolutely free, and it's done through a collaborative effort from many organizations, businesses, and financial institutions. Is one of the caveats. So one of the best things about our program is we're working with inner city kids who have never really seen the ice, don't have any connection to the sport, and we're introducing them. So as you can imagine, they can't even imagine themselves and what hockey is supposed to look like. And our volunteers that we have each week are different high school hockey teams. So the teams will come out, and these are all suburban and rural hockey teams, kids from different schools outside of our city. They come inside the city and work with our kids. And it's an incredible cultural breakthrough that happens. When they get on the ice, the barriers get broke down, and it's one of the most beautiful things that you can witness is this collaboration of our communities come together.
Well, speaking of collaboration, you needed that. You started in 2010, and then you broke your leg, and then you realized that you needed some help. You're trying to do it on your own, which was, I commend you for trying to do it on your own, but you realized quickly when you were down and out that once you weren't mobile, there was nobody there to help you with the rest of these kids. So that was like one of those aha moments, I think, for you, that you finally realized that I need some help. And that's when you came back bigger and faster and stronger with all these more help and more resources, more volunteers in 2014 to make the program what it is today.
I taught my first power skating lesson. The next day I played in an adult rec game, and this guy just smoked me, checked me. I was planted on my skate, twisted me around, spiral fracture my tibia fibula. And that's when I realized I'm going to be okay, because I was in so much pain. As I was recovering that week, I said, oh no, what am I going to do with the program? I had no instructor. Like you said, in 2014, we got with United Way, which was one of our big sponsors, in the sense that I knew that we had stability moving forward.
Another thing you said that really hit home with me when you mentioned you guys provide rides to and from for a lot of your players that are playing. And we do the same thing with our team hockey program. And my co-founder, myself, Paul Marabella, thought of the same exact thing. It's something I never really thought about because it wasn't the case where I grew up in Toronto. But he said that they're going to provide rides for the kids in the inner city education, the ICE program that they have there in Chicago, the Blackhawks, because kids get robbed for their gear. I mean, that's something suburban kids don't have to think about. But walking down the street, some of these kids in these communities can't walk down the street with their hockey bag and their sticks because
Right.
guys will come out of the woodwork and jack them for their gear.
Right.
So I definitely commend you for thinking about that and applying that with your program, because that's one more barrier that you're able to remove for these kids to enable them to enjoy the game of hockey.
Exactly. That once we got the agreement with our local transportation authority, I mean, they actually pick the kids up at their house and then bring them to the arena and back to their home. So, I mean, they're getting like a VIP type service. And what it does for those families is it makes them feel solid, you know, like they don't have to get on the city bus and they feel as though they're part of something bigger than just this opportunity. So it's been really, really so blessed.
Dampy, are you seeing an increase in the number of South Asian players playing in Canada right now?
Definitely. It's definitely because right now we're in that period of, my parents were, let's say, new immigrants to Canada. We're the first generation, so we're anybody that's around 32 to almost 50. Everybody's born in Canada, and they grown up. Parents have, let's say, my parents came to Canada when they were 24, 21. So they adopted hockey as their favorite sport after a while, and they got into hockey. And then their kids got into hockey. That's our generation, and now their grandkids are into hockey. So there's a lot of in Surrey, BC, for sure. I think I don't know the numbers, but I'm going to keep it moderate. But I think 65% of minor hockey in Surrey is Punjabi. Wow. And like, yeah, so even when I started before even I did up in hockey, I would just reach out to my friends, because everybody that grew up in Sparwood, BC, Elkford, BC, Fernie, BC, and Crow's Nest Pass, Alberta, we all moved up here, 98% of us, and we all knew about each other. So we all had kids. And so I would just reach out to my buddies and say, hey, I'm doing a hockey session. Does anybody want to come out? And slowly, this is before I joined like up in hockey, I was kind of doing what we're doing now. And because I played the game, because they have trust that I played at a higher level, and I always enjoyed working with kids, and it grew. So, but yeah, there's so many now new immigrants that are coming to Canada and knocking on my door, because the biggest thing for me is I can speak the language. I know the culture, and they've seen me on Prime Asia and different outlets for our East Indian community in Calgary, that I had to speak the language, or I didn't really have to speak the language, but I did. And that's what really brought me into their eyes, into their thoughts, to be like, okay, if we want to play hockey, we want to ask Dampy. And even today, just in the morning, somebody asked it, like, I want to put my kid in hockey. How do I do this? So I educate them, and they're new immigrants. And that's where I got to give credit to, is that my generation is definitely going to put our kids in hockey. And my kid's 13, my daughter's 9, they play. A lot of my friends' kids play, and some play at a very high level. And now the growth of the game is it's definitely slow, but it's definitely there. So,
as new immigrants, do you think the fact that you played pro hockey gives you added credibility too, where maybe they could be a little bit more skeptical, thinking hockey, we're not really sure, but you could walk and say, hey, I played pro hockey. I got this app in a program that I've co-founded with my partners. This is why you should trust me with being able to teach your kids the game of hockey that I fell in love with when I was a kid growing up.
Yeah, well, definitely. I think like if I was playing pro hockey now, and if I was 21 years old, you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have Snapchat, you have all those social platforms to show people where you're playing, and not in an arrogant way, but in a humble way. Like, hey, look, I'm South Asian, I'm first generation, I'm playing here, and people can connect to you. And that's how our Instagram handle is so well respected, because we showcase that. The Punjabi culture, you know, like there wasn't a lot of East Indians, like we call it apne that played hockey, and there wasn't a lot of people that made it anywhere. It was always like, play hockey, and then there's an expiry date, and it's 5 years or 6 years. And I remember hearing my buddy Robs is not playing, and this guy, and then different East Indian guys quitting. I didn't want an expiry date. I had a mindset at the age of 12 that I want to get, like, NHL is always a goal for anybody. I'm still trying to make it there, but I don't think that's going to happen. But you always have a goal of playing in the NHL. But for me, it wasn't, and I tell my wife that too, is that it wasn't just the NHL. I want to get to a respectful level where I'm respected there in hockey, and then I can give back to the community. And I was only 12 or 13 years old when I came up with that mindset. And it's crazy, because my son is 12 and 13, and now he's kind of saying the same things, right? He's saying, I can't wait to have kids. I'm like, wait, whoa. Well, wait a minute. And, protect your phone. And he goes, no. He's like, I know how it all works. I'm like, oh, great. Thank you. But he goes, I want to have kids because I want to do what you do. Because he's been part of some of the podcasts he listened to, after I won the award, during the award, the lead up to it. He's seen me, he's heard me in interviews. I sat him right in front of me where I'm doing Zoom calls and all that. So I wanted him to be influenced by what I do. But just when he said that, he goes, I want to be influential. I want to do this. I want to kind of lead. And it kind of makes me proud. So I think, playing pro hockey really helped validating me, especially in our culture, because we can be very skeptical and we can be very cutthroat. Like, who are you? And really, and thank you for for online, because I've been to so many get-togethers or parties in other cities, and like, oh, what did you do? I'm playing pro hockey. Shot, and then yeah, right. And then you go, all right, hockeydb.com, boom. Right. Yeah. Here's my picture, or Google, right? There you go. And walk away like this. Right. So, but anyways, like, I think people need validation. And I think, this award, and I know Rico can attest to this, is that it really brings out, what you do and how you do it and why you do it. And I think those are very key questions that any community wants to know.
What is it like having Hunter Singh and Jujhar Khaira as role models that people could see on TV? Both are fans and friends of the hockey culture program here. They're great ambassadors for the game out in BC and in Calgary and in Canada as a whole. What do you think it means for that South Asian community to see Hunter not only broadcasting games in Punjabi, but now he's doing it in English, and he's showing a tremendous job in both languages, and Jujhar Khaira doing his thing, riding on the left wing of the Edmonton Oilers Hockey Club that has all those other stars from that team too?
Well, first of all, Robin Bawa in our generation was big because having a South Asian player way back when to make the NHL, and he played for Vancouver and he played for the different teams, Washington, I think Anaheim and San Jose Sharks. That was a really big influential for me, and that was one person that we looked up to. I know he's a fighter and he was an aggressor, but the thing is, just to have that name in the NHL was key. And now talking about today, Harnaran Singh, first of all, he's an amazing individual. He was there when they announced the award, and for me, and that was very special to have two Punjabi people on the panel there when that happened. So a lot of respect to Harnaran Singh, and then Jujhar Khaira. Like, I haven't a chance to speak or meet with him, but I think if he was here on the panel, I would just say, like, it's, he's an inspiration to these South Asian kids, East Indian kids. He's got a very powerful name. He's got he's playing in Edmonton, which is a Canadian city, and he's playing alongside McDavid. And I can tell you this, that, I live in Calgary and I'm an Oilers fan, and I've always been an Oilers fan, but even the Flames fans, and it doesn't matter if you're any fan, you can be a Toronto fan, but if you're South Asian and you see Jujhar Khaira on the ice, you stop and watch his shift until it starts and ends, and see what he does. And even my son, he's like, "Oh, Dad, Jujhar's playing today," because he was injured that one time after that fight. And my son raced downstairs as quick as he can just to tell me that he's playing. I had the TV downstairs. They watch it in the bonus room upstairs. And it's capturing him, and it's making an influence on him, and it's great. I hope he continues to do well in the NHL and inspire these kids, and really, really admire the fact that he's representing our community in a positive way.
Rico, you were nominated. You won the 2019 Willie Community Hero Award, and your wife, actually, Sandy, nominated you. And then it was a conversation that you had with Willie that gave you confidence then, which led to your conversation with Commissioner Branch of the OHL. And now you're the Director of Cultural Diversity and Inclusion. You want to talk a little bit about your position with the Ontario Hockey League and how you've been able to take that step now to have an even bigger impact within the game of hockey?
Yes. So shortly after winning the award, when you're in Vegas, you already realize everything's kind of like crazy. You almost can't believe this is happening. And I feel really, really bad that Dampy wasn't able to have that experience, because like I told everybody that I spoke to that while I was there, is like, you have to make sure that others have this experience because it's overwhelming. But with that being said, So when I landed back in Flint and I happened to see one, but there were 5 electronic billboards with my face saying congratulations on winning the Willie O'Ree Award. I said, oh my word, my whole world got flipped upside down in the right way though. So as a referee, my lion's share of work is with high school hockey players and teams rather. And so what I would do after my games, I'd ask the coach, would it be all right if I brought the award in and talk with the players about cultural diversity and inclusion, as well as community service and why this award means so much. And so if I were to walk in there with my uniform, my ref uniform on, I'm sure everybody would be like, oh, what do we do wrong? And almost kind of repel me. Walking in with that physical award and talking about what it was like to win it, and then why I won it, and why you should follow and look up to people like myself, and then hand that award. Like over probably close to 400 players held the trophy that year. And it was very impactful. So what I seen in myself is like, all right, I have a real platform here. What can I do with it? And unfortunately, George Floyd was killed a year ago. And when that happened, it shook most anybody with any bit of heart in their soul. It shook you. And people of color in particular, especially here in the U.S., where we realize that we have to do so. It's got to stop with just protest. We have to be able to do something more than a performative action. We have to get involved. I don't know. I got a burning desire to call Willie O'Ree. And I said, Willie, I just don't know what to say and who to say it to. And he said, Rico, I'm going to tell you something. Your voice is being heard in hockey. So that's where you need to let your voice be. You need to let your voice be heard. I mean, basically telling me you need to figure out where you can put your voice at here. I had already developed a relationship with the OHL in the previous fall, talking about the award with their business ops folks. And so I'd already kind of had an introduction. And I emailed a letter to David Branch, the commissioner of the OHL, and asked him if anybody was doing anything with diversity inclusion. And it led to several phone calls, which, to my surprise and elation, it led to the creation and appointment of the Director of Cultural Diversity Inclusion for the Ontario Hockey League, position that they had never been held before. What that role has done for me is provide an opportunity to really get to the courageous conversations when it refers to diversity and inclusion in hockey in particular. So one of the first things I did, Anson, was I interviewed 7 recent former players of the OHL, players of color, to get their give me their perspective of their experience while playing in the OHL from a cultural standpoint. And some things were very glaring that came out of those conversations. It wasn't all bad. But some of the things that were noteworthy was, first, there was a policy that was in place to help protect those players and all players. That's the abuse, harassment, and diversity policy. And virtually none of them were aware of it. So that was my first mission, to educate all of the entire Ontario Hockey League about this policy and why it's there to protect them and how we can make it work for all of us. One of the things that I've been doing is trying to use my platform to talk to minor hockey associations so we can help set the standard at the youngest ages. So by the time they get to major junior level, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. USA Hockey, Hockey Canada, they could do a lot more with trying to improve the situation, because they're the bottom of the pyramid when you're thinking about the greatest number of hockey players that could be impacted by this kind of training. And you shouldn't have to be able to go to a rink and think you have to tolerate this kind of behavior. It shouldn't be accepted, period. Zero tolerance as far as I'm concerned. So I'm glad that hockey is finally starting to address these things and not have to have people have tough skin or look the other way. It's now, this is unacceptable. There's no place for this in the game of hockey. If you want to think this way, beat it. Hockey isn't the place for you. Dan, we just heard just now about Rico and how winning the Willie O'Ree Community Service Award changed his life and changed things, and see how it's perceived within the community. How did things change for you? And it's unfortunate you didn't get a chance to go to Vegas, and I'm agreeing with Rico too. Once things open up, you need to make it to Vegas. I can't tell you what happens there, because whatever happens in Vegas but definitely is an experience worth going and attending. How did things change for you when you won the 2020 Willie O'Ree Community Hero Award?
Well, I come from a very humble family, and when I told my parents that, when I got into the finals, that there's a chance of going to Vegas, they're like, my mom's like, "Who's paying for it?" Right? So worried about, and so typical Indian parents, right? I'm not gonna even lie, I can't even make that up, right? Can't make it up. But so and I said, and I explained that to them, and my mom thought it was great because and my dad was like, yeah, people will see you, you speak well, or your parents are supporting you, and I haven't even won yet, and I thought it would be really, really cool to win an award, an NHL award, which you think about playing the NHL, but you watch the awards, but you never put yourself in that position, and because it's very special to win an NHL award, and here I am as a finalist, and I think, being in front of hockey superstars and hockey personnel would definitely give me a little bit more spotlight, and just you get to meet different people. You can't change that. And hopefully, as Rico said, me and him had some conversations before this, is that he's definitely pushing for me to get that opportunity to be able to be in front of people. And if that comes, definitely I'll exercise that. But, when we won the award, what really came forward right off the bat was how much my parents did for me, right? Like before anything, before you align yourself with initiative A or B or C, you really reflect back that you got to give your parents that unbelievable credit that they stuck with you. A lot of people were saying at a certain time, like, hey, why are you keeping him in there? What if he gets hurt? East Indian people don't continue to play hockey. That all those comments, and I'm so glad that they can come back and they can come back and say my son won an award, NHL award, and something that they're a big part of. This award is about family and what the family does. So first of all, it just really validated all what my parents did, and all my family and friends, their support that they gave me. And then as we move forward with Opno Hockey, just gave us a bigger platform to talk about what just Rico just talked about, racism and diversity and inclusion, because there's so much talk that needs to be addressed. And I know I'm very open with it. I'm not arrogant with it, but I educate people, and I want to be able to say that racism has not stopped. Racism is still alive, and it's taught from parents. My son was playing. I don't make this very openly public, but he played a game about a year ago, and some kid said the P word to him, and he looked at me, he goes, "Dad, he said the word," and I'm like, and he told I want to say the coaches, and they just kind of disregarded that. He told me a year later, because he knew that I would be ticked off because the coaches didn't take action, right? So, it really it just showed that people just want to walk away, sweep it under the rug, all those cliches. And I want to be now there, not only for the South Asian community, because Upna Hockey is about connecting hockey communities together. And we don't segregate. Just because you're Caucasian doesn't mean you don't come to my hockey program. If you're Vietnamese or Chinese or Filipino, and we have a lot of players from different backgrounds. It's not about segregation. Bring it all together and bring them all as one. Like we don't need to. We can speak against racism, but we want to be able to connect people as well and educate people. And that's one thing that I do in the dressing room. That I'm an East Indian male coach, and I know racism was a part that I had to deal with. And we want to abolish that and play as a team, play as brothers. And if you have a female on the team, play as a family, and work together, develop together. So Upna Hockey has gotten some great partnerships with winning the award as well. Myself, I won the award, but I don't see it as me. It was a lovely tour, and I both connected, and both are doing what we want to do. And we've connected with Bauer, Rogers. We have some few other initiatives. There's an initiative out of the States, Bama Golden Knights Academy, where they cater to the Latin American countries, the South American countries, in Brazil. And if it wasn't for COVID, I would be there helping with their inline and ball hockey camps, and they have ice hockey there. So it has really connected us with a lot of different initiatives, and we're gonna be a voice for our community, and we're gonna be a voice for racism. We're gonna be a voice for diversity, and winning the award has definitely put us in the spotlight, and definitely respect from so many people and so many initiatives that are giving us the proper respect for us to do what we're doing.
When you think about the Willie Community Hero Award, you think about a person that through hockey has positively impacted his or her community or culture or society. And I think this describes both of you guys to a T. So I definitely appreciate you joining us today on Hockey Culture. Definitely looking forward to having both of you come to Vegas once the world opens back up again. We can properly celebrate both your accomplishments as being Willie Community Hero Award winners. So thanks again.